Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. For this one we're going to return to New Zealand and we're going to revisit a brewery who are actually very highly rated in craft beer circles, and I've reviewed one of their own beers so far and also a collaboration beer that they were involved in. So we're going to return to the Rewired Brewing Company who brew in Blenheim in New Zealand, but I think they're mainly based in Marlborough on the South Island. But this one is the Rewired beer, which is a brown ale, and I think the other one I reviewed for you was the Big Smoke, which used the same kind of Bamberg smoked malts that go into the sort of Spezial and Schlenkerla Rauch beers down there. So as is usual then with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. If you don't want to stick with me for that, just fast forward into the video a few minutes and you'll get straight to the tasting. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with the link to my other Rewired beer reviews. So anyway, the Rewired Brewing Company was founded by Soren Eriksson, a nomadic Danish brewer who set up permanent roots in Marlborough in New Zealand. Now Soren had apparently always been a big traveller and he liked to try the local beers wherever he went, but he said that back then it was simply like trying the same kind of generic fizzy lagers, if you like, with different labels on them. But in 2005 he was finishing up his master's degree in biochemistry in Perth, Western Australia, and he was a regular there at the Little Creatures brew pub in Fremantle, which was where he made his kind of realisation, if you like, that there was more to beer than simply the kind of fizzy yellow stuff that a lot of lagers tend to be. But that year his future wife Monique got him a Cooper's home brewing kit for his Christmas, and apparently the beer he made from this kit was terrible, but it hooked him on the idea of craft brewing. And upon moving to New Zealand in 2006, he upgraded to the advanced all-grain home brewing stage. In September 2008, Soren decided to quit his research activities. He was still working in biochemistry, and he decided at that point that he was going to become a commercial brewer, if you like. Initially he had planned to open up a brew pub on the North Island of New Zealand, but he landed a job with Renaissance Brewing in Blenheim, who are on the South Island, and so he relocated there, and the couple have remained in Marlborough ever since. But quickly they realised that running a brewery is kind of a hugely demanding task on finances and time, so similar to McKellar and To'ul from his own land, he actually brews under contract with various different breweries. So Rewired don't actually own their own dedicated brewing facility, but they make use of unused capacity in other breweries, and most of their beer is brewed at Renaissance Brewing in Blenheim, but they're also brewing a few beers at the Steam Brewing Company in Auckland on the North Island of New Zealand as well. But Rewired was apparently the name Rewired was inspired by the Kiwi sort of can-do attitude and other craft brewers who have kind of attempted to push the boundaries of beer brewing. But the name comes from the number 8 gauge wire that was originally used in electric fencing, and although it was one of these things that kind of was invented kind of quite easily, but it was one of the things that became kind of largely widely used, and it kind of sort of shows the ingenuity that the Kiwis are quite famous for actually. So that's your kind of brief history of the Rewired Brewing Company. They're a Danish guy who was working in Australia and originally a home brewer, went in to become a commercial brewer, and they brew under contract at various different breweries, and named after a kind of quite famous thing that shows the Kiwi can-do attitude. So a very nice brewery actually. Just to list the other beers you can get from these guys, you have the Saison Sauvin, which is the yellow label. This is a Saison ale. Hopwired and Semiconductor, which are double IPAs. You get Ice Stout, which is an imperial stout. Haywired wheat beer, which is a wheat ale. Rewired this guy here, which is a brown ale. Tail Poppy, which is a red ale. Bernay, which is a 16% barrel aged imperial stout, and of course there is the Big Smoke, which I reviewed for you already. So let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting here. I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little quick look at the artwork again. This guy is a 5.7% brown ale. It's hopped with Pacific Jade, Pacifica and Cascade hops, and the malt base includes pale, crystal, caramel, brown malts, chocolate malts, and there's also some wheat in there as well. So let me just bring up the camera and let you have a look at it. You can see on the label there it does have the kind of barbed wire, the sort of 8-wired number 8 gauge wire that's made this brewery quite famous actually. You can see on the top that's the standard kind of 8-wired bottle cap on there, really nicely done actually. But just to read the little product description that's on the back of this one here, it says brown ales have developed a pretty bad reputation in New Zealand. It's perhaps the most versatile style of beer in the world, but it's misunderstood and overlooked. Why? Is it the word brown leading the mind towards less appeasing things? Is brown less sexy than say golden? Or could it be that massive breweries have claimed the colour for their least inspiring products, driving the style into oblivion? That's something something to mull over while you sip up this beer and experience a brown ale that's probably unlike any you've previously tasted. We're doing our bit to right the wrong with this malty, hoppy, roasty, flavoursome and refreshing drop. Perfect with food and friends, or just because you're thirsty and deserve a great beer. Some might say that it's a brown ale refined. We say Rewired. Cheers, Soren Eriksson, brewer. And it just says on the bottom as well a little bit about the brewery as well, so it's kind of just what I went through the history with you there. It's got the address of the brewery in Blenheim, Marlborough, New Zealand as well. But it looks really nice, as I say, very nicely presented. 5.7% brown ale. It's got Pacific Jade, Pacifica, and what was the other hop that was in there? It was Cascade as well, so it should be a really nice beer. Let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting here. You can see a nice smoky opening, so we'll get this guy out and into the glass. I really enjoy brown ales though. They're one of my kind of favourite styles of beer, and it was really Brooklyn Brown that kind of started that for me, if you can forgive me for saying that in a kind of another brewery's beer review. But Brooklyn Brown was the one that really got me into brown ales, and since I got into them, you know, you discover some really excellent beers from across the world. And this is another one that I picked up incidentally from Lewis at Thistle News in Aberdeen, who's my supplier of everything Brewdog, everything Toil and McKellar, and also some random kind of gems like this. But I'll just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the actual colour of this beer. If I hold this up to you, it's actually very clear. I thought it was going to be more cloudy than that, but it's a nice kind of clear chestnutty rosewood colour. There's a solid finger of a kind of beige frothy head on this one. It's definitely, I would say, dark chestnut, rosewood, mahogany, that kind of colour there. It is clear, you can't really see it on the camera, but it's definitely clear rather than opaque, this beer. If I hold it up to the light, I can see just little big bubbles of carbonation kind of going up to the top. They're just a very small amount of big bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head, but a very, very attractive looking beer nonetheless. So let's get this guy, let's have a little look at the aroma of this guy, and then we'll get on with the tasting. Just got a little bit on my nose there. But yeah, it's got a very kind of roasted aroma. It's quite subtle actually, the roasted character, but it blends very, very well. But you can pick up the kind of fruity character in this. It does have a kind of tropical and citrusy orange kind of feel to it, this one. If I just sugar it a little bit, you're getting just, yeah, you're definitely getting a little bit of kind of orangey and citric fruit coming out there. And a nice roasted caramel malt in the background. There's some coffee in there, as I said. It kind of has that dark roasted element to it. Jeez, oh, I keep doing that with these beers. Should pour a little less in. But yeah, it's got a nice roasted element just in the background there, and some nutty and earthy character coming out. So let's give it a taste before I sniff up any more then, eh? Oh yeah, quite roasted in the taste actually. You can pick up just a little bit of the fruity character in the aftertaste. But yeah, it's big and roasted. It's a very malty beer, this one, but at the same time the mouthfeel is light enough that you pick up the fruity character in the taste. The fruits come at the start of the taste in this one. So in the start, at the very front of the tongue, you're getting a little bit of the kind of grapefruity and sort of citricy character that you would expect. It's definitely grapefruit and a sort of lighter kind of orangey citrus in there. The citrus is quite sharp actually, you just feel it kind of lying at the front of the palate, but more towards the back of the mouth is where you're getting the nice roasted coffee character, and there's a sweet caramel element that just sits right in the middle of the tongue too. But there's a nice roasted kind of bready character as well that's sitting in there, and that's mixing very well with the caramel. The caramel isn't all that sharp in its sweetness, it blends very well in with the bready flavours, and at the back edges of the tongue you're getting that kind of coffee, roasted coffee element that you expect from the beer. But it's got a nice element of sweetness that you're picking up from the kind of jade hop, I think. The jade hop is the one that gives it the nice, particularly fruity character in there, and the cascade wood as well. The cascade is where you'll get the kind of grapefruity flavours coming out a bit, and these two hops kind of combine very well. And if I remember rightly, Pacifica is more of a complexing hop than the other two, but the other ones I think are what are giving it the kind of nice fruity character that comes at the start. But yeah, the actual, now that you get into it a little bit more, you can pick up the chocolate malt. The sweet kind of chocolate flavours are coming out a little bit more and just sitting on the tongue as well. It's quite a milky chocolate that's coming out in this one rather than a darker chocolate, but you also have that coffee there that balances it out a little bit. It has a little bit of earthy character that comes out of the hops, and there is an element of a kind of nutty character sitting in with the kind of bready flavours as well. The malt base on this one, as you would expect, I think they put 4 or 5 different types of malt in this one, and it is the complexity matches just how many different malts they've put in this one. But yeah, it starts off quite fruity, then it goes to the nice roasted caramel, and then the roasted character, the nice roasted mix between the sort of coffee flavours, a nice slightly darker caramel, and just a nice blend in there with a nice bready character. The citrusy part of the beer sits on the front of the tongue, and the roasted coffee element is just right at the back on the sides of the tongue there. A nice little bitter part to it there, and there's a nice earthy character coming out as well. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a very interesting brown ale actually. It's quite unusual to have this kind of fruity sweetness to it. It has the almost American pale ale-like elements to it, and it's added in very, very nicely to the typical malt backbone that you expect from this brown ale. So it's a very, very interesting one, and I can see why on the bottle they say, oh, it's unlike any brown ale you've ever tasted, because it really is. In terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would definitely say it's mid-bodied. It could possibly pass for a light-bodied beer, and that's because of the kind of freshness that the fruit gives it. You will feel that it does have quite a wet mouthfeel, a nice wet and juicy mouthfeel to it, and that's because of the Cascade and the Pacific Jade hops. They give that really nice, fresh, fruity element to it. The carbonation on it is quite moderate, and it actually helps bring out the kind of bitter coffee flavour quite nicely actually, and it has a little kind of bit of creamy character to it as well, but it's mainly dominated by the wet kind of fruity juicy character that comes out in the mouthfeel as well, but it does have a good bit of dryness that comes out in the aftertaste. And that's where you're getting the roasted character kind of lingering in the mouth. So, I mean, overall, this is a really, really beautiful brown ale. It's a style that I very much enjoy. As I said, it was Brooklyn Brown that kind of sent me on the way when it came to brown ales, and I've discovered some really, really good ones since then. So this is one that you definitely need to try if you get the chance, and I'm sure I've tried 2 or 3 beers from 8 Wired, and they seem to be doing what they get right. I mean, the Dog Wired beer that they did with Brewdog was outstanding. That was an absolutely beautiful beer. The Big Smoke was quite an interesting one, but I do think, I would be honest and say that I think this one is better than the Big Smoke actually. But yeah, I hope you found this beer review informative and you've enjoyed my little kind of presentation on this beer. As always, please comment in the section below and let me know your own thoughts on this beer if you do happen to have tried it. It's always interesting to hear other people's thoughts on the beer, and indeed the kind of range of beers that the brewery does. So comment in the section below, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed this beer review, and I hopefully will be doing more New Zealand beers for you in the near future. Cheers!